Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we are continuing our 32 for 32 series with a look at the Atlanta Falcons. New head coach in town, Arthur Smith. Same old guys with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Look, has not been the best time to be a Falcons fan, really, for the past 20 plus years. You could even go further if you really wanted to, but perhaps things are looking up. I have a very special guest to help me try to figure out what they need to do to get back into 2016 form. That is none other than senior writer at For the Win, Falcons diehard, grew up loving the team. Charles McDonald, you know him on Twitter as at Converse, truly one of the best accounts on the old Twitter sphere. Charles, thanks for making the time and happy offseason, man.
Yeah, thanks. We're almost here to the offseason. It's been a long season, and I'm ready to take a quick break before we dive back into free agency and draft stuff. But thanks for having me on.
That's right, man. It is almost here. We're recording this on February 3rd, so still got the Super Bowl coming, but trying to get ahead of things and get into this offseason. So per usual, we're going to be going through the three-team needs, go through a quick gut feel round where I'm going to shoot some questions at Charles. Hopefully he can put his Nostradamus hat on, give me his best guess for what could be coming forward, and we'll get a quick offseason bold prediction before we get on our way. So without further ado, Charles, what do you think are the top three team needs for the Falcons ahead of this offseason?
Well, like every year, it seems they definitely need more juice on the edge. Dante Fowler, who they signed last year, was banged up in out of the lineup for most of the season, but when he was in, he didn't really do much of anything. And Raheem Morris, the interim coach last year, even spoke on that, where he said that Dante Fowler's production was basically non-existent and disappointing. So they need more from him, and they probably need to add a guy across from him. They also need help at safety because Keanu Neal's a free agent, Ricardo Allen's a free agent, and based on their cap situation, they're about $30 million over the cap right now. It's going to be hard to bring either one of those guys back. So I'm not really sure how you attack that, but that's a position that needs to improve. And also running back. It seems like just yesterday they were roasting teams with Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, but both those guys have moved on to different spots in their career. The Todd Gurley signing last year didn't really work out outside of him being just a goal line hammer at times. So unless they feel comfortable with Ito Smith handling the load, which I don't think they do based on his injury history, they're going to have to add someone there. So, defensive end, pass rusher, safety, and running back, I think are three of their biggest needs. And if you wanted to, you could throw a corner in there too, because outside of AJ Terrell, who played pretty well as a rookie, they need some help there too.
Yeah. Now, I know my company, seemingly every time there's a run play, we have to yell that running backs don't matter. And it gets very annoying, and I get that. But I think you're right, man, because like Todd Gurley and Brian Hill being unrestricted here, like no offense to Ito Smith, but we got to do something to add some juice here. I mean, I don't think that was really necessarily all on Gurley last year. It wasn't great. Yeah. He was a little bit better than the masses were giving him respect for, at least during the first half of the season. Obviously, he's kind of had those knee problems throughout the last few years. Do you think it's a spot where they'll try to get a rookie? Or, I mean, we've been talking about Aaron Jones and some of these free agent options. I know we would love to see Arthur Smith get another bell count in Fantasyland.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to go with the draft route just because they don't really have any cash. And I think if you're starting a spot where you're $30 million over the cap, and, another bad part about where the Falcons are right now is that they're $30 million over the cap and they only have 30 players in the roster right now. So I don't really think that this is a team that can afford to pay a running back in free agency. I think they're just going to have to roll the dice in the draft and hope to find maybe an undrafted gem, or maybe someone, if there's a guy like late in August who still hasn't found a team, maybe they can sign a running back then. But I would be pretty disappointed if they decide to spend their small resources on a free agent running back this year.
Man, this salary cap, I feel like there's always a way around it. I mean, we've seen the Chiefs just do freaking miracles with it. But yeah, to be already under 30 million under, and to your point, only have 30 players signed, not great. And as you brought up with the secondary and the pass rush, obviously have problems to address with the pass defense. So, we're going the running back in the draft. But between finding someone to complement Dante Fowler, or perhaps getting a number 2 corner, replacing Keanu Neal, would you rather, hopefully both, but either or, secondary or pass rush, which one would you prioritize?
I think I'll go secondary just because the depth there scares me a little bit. And they've invested some on the defensive line. And I guess if you're a believer that Dante Fowler can still play, and if he's still on the team next year, if he's not a cap casualty, which is very possible this offseason, then hopefully you hope that they can just get that back in order. But the secondary actually does need some bodies and they need some talent. So I think secondary is a bigger concern there.
Yeah, hopefully AJ Terrell can take a leap forward. But to your point, yeah, need some more out of Dante Fowler. And that takes us right into the gut feel round. Again, we're recording this on February 3rd. Hopefully no major news breaks. Charles and I are doing our best to stay on top of all that. So please forgive us if something crazy happens between now and publication. But just want to get his thoughts at this point in time. And let's start on that defense because, again, this cap situation is just awful. And just looking at the 2021 cap hits, Grady Jarrett, Dante Fowler, Deion Jones, Ricardo Allen, all these guys are carrying hits of at least $8 million. You seem to already hint that Fowler could be on his way out sooner rather than later. Any of these other guys, Jarrett, Jones, and Allen, do you think could maybe be, cap casualties or just traded because you need to save money somewhere at some point?
I think Jones and Jarrett are going to be safe just because I don't think that those are guys you regret paying. But Ricardo Allen, just when you look at how much they could save, I think that he seems like almost a guarantee to get cut. Which is why I mentioned him as like a free agent earlier. So, you're going to lose the veteran leadership with him, but like I said, you got to find a way to get under. Maybe they can bring him back on a cheaper deal, but maybe Dean Pease also wants to try to figure out how to bring his own guys into the defense too. That he's going to be building down in Atlanta. So it's going to take a lot of work for them to figure out how to do this, and unfortunately, they're not the only team that has this problem because the cap got crushed due to coronavirus. I don't think it's been announced yet, but I think it's going to be in between like 180 and 185 million, which is way down from where it was just a year ago. So I don't envy the job that Terry Fontenot and his cap guys are going to have to do this offseason, but hey, that's why they get paid and I don't.
Man, a little bit off topic here, but why does the NFL have a salary cap? I've brought this up before. I hate it because we got to attack these running backs anytime someone's good. Now, okay, yeah, when we have this fixed amount of salary cap, I get it. You don't want to devote a ton of money to the running back position, but if some owner wants to spend billions of dollars on his team, I don't know why they shouldn't be able to let all these players go get played. People bring up, we'll turn to Major League Baseball. There's been more champions in baseball in the last 20 years in the football. Do you have any overarching thoughts on the salary cap? I know it's kind of out of left field, but
get rid of it.
Yes, thank you.
Because my response is like, there are people, so-and-so, or they'll turn to where the Yankees are winning every year. Dude, Tom Brady's about to hit his 10th. Like there's no real parity in the NFL. Like before Brady went to the NFC, like the only quarterbacks who have made the Super Bowl on the AFC side were Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Tom Brady, and then 1 year of Joe Flacco. Like, like we need to get over the parity stuff. I guess before the Mahomes era started, I guess it was all Manning, Roethlisberger, Brady, and then the 1 year of Joe Flacco. So it's just, I feel like the salary cap is just a way for the owners to keep some more money in their own pocket. But like Jerry Jones, he would love for there not to be a salary cap because he doesn't care. Like he'll pay whatever it takes to get the best team. And if your owner can't afford the team to compete with the other owners, then he should sell his team. And that's how I feel about that. But I don't think we need a salary cap at all. And I think that people are conditioned into thinking that it saves parity when we've seen like the same people win every single year for the past 20 years.
Like, the current system is not creating enough parity. So let's try the one that maybe gets the players more money. I don't know. Crazy concept. But all right, back on the Falcons. So I think we pretty much established by now that the defense, they just don't really have enough resources to probably get markedly better from last year this year. Maybe they get, some turnover luck and positive aggression and all that, but we're going to need to score a lot of points. Obviously that starts with Matt Ryan. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero said that he and Julio are not going anywhere. Has some reports coming out with the potential trade after that Stafford extravaganza. We're talking about everybody, but Matt Ryan, he'll be 36 in May. Hasn't replicated, the magical 2016 season, but he's still anyone's idea of above average to even great QB still. I mean, they would be leaving $26.5 million in dead cap if they cut him after this season. Do you see Matt Ryan going anywhere for the next 3 years?
Maybe. It depends on what they do in the draft. And I think that them taking a quarterback at 4 is very realistic. And depending on who they take at 4, I think decides like how long Matt Ryan's going to be here. Like 2021, obviously safe. And I think that anyone who thought that he was going to be playing elsewhere would just take 2 seconds to look at his page on Over the Cap, and you will see that he ain't going anywhere. And it would be hard to trade him to a new team not just on the cap, but also based on his production last year, which I don't think was like entirely his fault because Derek Carter was not great at calling plays. Julio Jones is banged up. Like I'm not someone who believes that the Matt Ryan book is completely done yet. But like if like let's say they get into the draft and Justin Fields is there and they take him. You sit Justin Fields for a year, it's kind of hard to just justify him being on the bench for 2 years. Now, if you take someone like Trey Lance, that's an easier sell, I think, to the fan base. We say, hey, we'll let this guy sit for 2 years, let Ryan ride it out, and then we'll give Lance the keys whenever that's done. So I wouldn't be surprised for Ryan to play 2 or 3 more years here, but once you get past this season is when you start like having real earnest conversations about, all right, when is this thing up? Because Matt spoke to the media today, and he said he was like, if they drafted the quarterback, he would be open to like being a figure for that player and helping them throughout the early portions of their career. So I think that'd be at least he's willing. It's something he's willing to do, and it'd be a good spot for him. It's not like he's gonna throw a hissy fit if they draft a quarterback before or anything, but I think the type of player they drafted for will tell you a lot about how long they see Matt Ryan's future with the team.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, it seems like a situation where we talk every year, hey, this team should trade down. But in the Falcons case, I mean, they're truly more than one player away. They don't have the cap room to exactly upgrade. It does seem like they should trade down if at all possible.
Yeah. It's tough because you don't know when you're going to be here again at the 4th pick. And in a draft where, I see 4 legitimate potential starting quarterbacks down the road. I think it makes sense to take one if you're a team with a 36-year-old quarterback as good as Matt Ryan's been in his career. But like you said, like it will be hard to be upset if the Falcons decide to trade down because the 4th pick in a 4 quarterback draft, pretty sure that the Dolphins aren't going to take one at 3. So you can drive up a lot of interest for that 4th pick and then trade back and still get a premium player, maybe not a quarterback, and then fill in some extra holes on your roster and really go for it for the 2021 season if you think that you can build a team that quickly to get back into the playoffs, which, if Arthur Smith is as good as a play caller as I think he is, then I don't think that getting back to the playoffs is impossible for the Falcons this year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not, particularly if he can get Matt Ryan and company just playing, not quite as shanty 2016 levels, but something in the same ballpark, we would take it. I want to stick with Arthur Smith because obviously did some great works with the 2019-2020 Titans as their offensive coordinator. We don't know who the Falcons starting RB is going to be. I agree with you. It probably will be someone they take in the first couple of rounds of the draft. But do you think Smith will still be able to enable such a great running game without Derrick Henry? I mean, have you seen enough from him just schematically to think, hey, like Falcons offense, this is going to be a legit unit again?
Yeah, I'm more excited about the way that he's able to kind of build the play action passing game off the run. And I'm not sure that he needs like a Derrick Henry type of back to have a productive running game. Like I kind of feel like that was more of a situation where like, hey, I got Derrick Henry and this behemoth offensive line, like let's run it 40 times a game and just crush them on the ground. And but the drop back passing game was still pretty impressive, and I do think that the running game is going to be an emphasis, and I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing considering how bad Atlanta was at running the ball last year. And I think if they're going to do that, I think they need to make maybe an upgrade at left guard somewhere. And if Alex Mack ends up retiring this offseason, obviously center is going to end up being a huge hole too. So I think for Atlanta, if depending on how the Mack situation plays out and where they're looking at like at the start of March, I think that figuring out the offensive line is probably going to be a bigger deal for fixing the running game than trying to find a running back that can be a bell cow. Because I think if you're in a spot where maybe you have a rookie and Ito Smith and another guy that you signed in August, maybe that can be enough if Arthur Smith can scheme up the running game. Because I do think that he was pretty good at scheming up the runs and calling stuff that really suited Derrick Henry's skill set. Like you'll see them run a lot of duo runs where they'll basically just collapse the middle of the offensive line and bounce Derrick Henry, and he's one-on-one with a cornerback in the outside, and that's a win every time. And that's the stuff that I like to see because that shows an offensive coordinator is just trying to make things easier on his players. Why am I going to try to run Derrick Henry up the middle when I can get him one-on-one with like a 190-pound cornerback on the outside?
Crazy concept for sure. It's good to see Arthur going through with that. And yeah, I mean, I understand why teams don't want to give their starting running back 300 plus carries, but in fantasy land, we are always looking for that 3-down workhorse that can get 20 plus touches per game. It will certainly, be a good idea of if they have one of those guys or not based on the running back they end up with. But good to hear that, we should at least have an improvement in the passing game compared to what we were looking at before. Want to stay on that because Julio Jones, look, he's been anyone's idea of a top 5, if not top 1 wide receiver pretty much the past decade. He was still awesome last year. He was just banged up pretty much ever since that Cowboys game in week 2. He turns 32 in a week, February 8th. Happy birthday, Julio, as this is live now. It's your birthday, so congrats. So we've seen the quick drop-off come from AJ Green, Des Bryant. I know Julio better than those guys. I get it, but the guy's turning 32. He's not, immortal. Do you see him falling out of the top 5 consensus receivers anytime soon? Or are we, again, just looking at a freaking prodigy and Julio's going to keep on Julioing?
I don't know. I think for me, that's just gonna have to be. I'll believe when I see it. I'm still all in on him being a top 5 receiver, maybe even top 3. To me, it's kind of like the LeBron thing. Like I don't know when. I know at some point the wheels are gonna fall off. I don't know when. So until that happens, I'm all in on Julio being a number 1 receiver. He just seems like one of those guys that like he's just built different than the rest of us. And the fact that the fact that he could come out here at 32 and have like a 1,400-yard season, and I don't think anyone would even blink an eye at it, is pretty crazy that about what he's done in his career and the type of player that he is. So, maybe there's a little concern that the wheels start to fall off this year, but I'm not concerned about that until I see it happen.
Yeah, and he just averaged a career high 11.3 yards per target. Like he looked better than ever last year. Again, it was just playing through the pain. And Julio, I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for playing through the pain. It's like him and Tyreek, I feel like twice a game, they kind of limp or hobble off, rarely keeps him sidelined. This dude was literally playing through like a bad hamstring injury and still getting open downfield. I love the DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson gave their top 5 wide receiver lists. Both still out Julio number 1.
Yeah.
So I'd say those guys know a little thing about playing wide receiver. We can go ahead and take their word for it. All right, quick last thing here. Calvin Ridley, one of the more overqualified number 2 wide receivers in the league. Was absolutely fantastic. He's not an unrestricted free agent until 2023. I think we all agree Julio and Ridley are fine at that 1-2 punch. But we got Russell Gage. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2022. Look, solid slot receiver, incredible arm, randomly PFF's number 1 graded passer from last year. I don't know what's in that system, man. Mohamed Sanu to Russell Gage, they just breed these throwing slot wide receivers. But we know they can't address this position really in free agency. But do you see the Falcons trying to make a push to add another wide receiver? Because as we saw last year, when one of these starters gets hurt, they're pretty thin behind them.
Yeah, I think they need to take someone in the middle rounds of the draft. I'm not sure what type of receiver that they would need, but like when Julio went down, you really saw how thin they were, because Ridley, like he could be a number 1 receiver. Gage is your number 2 is where it starts to get a little dicey, and then the guys behind him don't really have a business like just being being in your heavy 11 personnel set. So I think that they definitely need to add someone in, unless they feel like they need to re-sign Russell Gage, which, I depending on where you are with the cap next year, maybe that's a possibility, but I don't really see it as like a necessity. I think they need to find someone to be their future number 3 behind Julio and Ridley. And then, once Julio keeps getting older, you're going to have to figure out who's going to play long-term besides Ridley too.
Yeah, as we've seen, with the Chiefs, you can certainly circulate the majority of your passing production through 2 players, but not a bad idea to get an offense that's probably going to need to carry the defense, a few more weapons for sure. Charles, great stuff. Do you have a bold offseason call? Can be early round pick, free agent acquisition, anything like that?
Well, just because I wanted it to happen, I'm going to call Trey Lance to the Falcons, because I just think that would be such a good situation. And you just watch the physical upside on him, and you think about him and Arthur Smith's offense, and maybe like you could even add a little more quarterback run options with Trey Lance while still having the passing stuff. Like I think that if Trey Lance could hit his potential, that's someone that could just burn down the league. So I'm all in on him to Atlanta and be able to sit behind Ryan for a year or 2.
I like it, man. Do you have him as your QB2 behind Lawrence?
No, he'd probably be QB3. Okay. I like him a little bit more than Zach Wilson. And I definitely got him behind Justin Fields as I started
Okay.
working through these quarterback guys.
Gotcha. I'm a Columbus, Ohio lifer, so I always gotta try to brush off my Fields stand a little bit too much. So that's good to hear. And I will, I recognize you've watched far more film on the quartet than I have. So great stuff, man. Everyone, make sure you follow Charles on Twitter at 4verts. You're over there at For the Win. You and Stephen Ruiz, especially, produce some great content. What you got on the pipeline?
We have a podcast called The Counter later today. It's February 3rd. We are going to record with our buddy Nate Tice, the previous Super Bowl. And then tomorrow we are talking to Deontay Lee, who is doing work over at Pro Football Focus now and is an incredible writer.
Oh, yeah. He had his debut article about Brandon Staley. Fantastic stuff. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out everything Charles has going on. Again, at 4verts on Twitter. Truly one of the best accounts you will follow. I'm sure you're following it already. So he's Charles. I'm Ian. Thank you as always for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.